So, it's absolutely amazing to be here in Meghalaya, India in the northeast. It would take a guy like Karim to make this happen. So, marriage is about many things. Some of them are culturally specific, others of them are totally universal. From my perspective, the essence of marriage is celebrating the connection of two people who are willing to share everything, who resonate at a deeper level, and who are going to embark on a joint mission. Some people are more blessed than others with the philosophical, empathetic, humanistic gifts that allow them to connect intensely and deeply with other people. And I look at a guy like Karim and I'm like, wow, this is a relationally gifted guy. And I've experienced it over almost a decade and a half. He knows others deeply, he forms transformative and lifelong friendships, sometimes with people similar to him, but more magically and rarer still, with people of vastly different backgrounds, career paths, and inclinations. So for the relationally blessed like Karim, their capacity to be a soulmate, even with someone seemingly different, is innate and spontaneous. In our postmodern world, of course, value systems are proliferating, cultures shift, pair bonding, it seems, is less prized, and technology cuts us off from one another. But this humanistic capacity for what I'm going to term soulmateness is rarer and more precious than ever. And of all my contemporaries, Karim is really the closest connection I've ever found to a soul brother. And as a man who lacks siblings, that's quite important to me. But yet, whatever soul brotherness we have, he has an uncanny connection with Nata. And this has transcended distance and myriad practical obstacles. So when I look at it, I see that they are really on the path to a deep and fruitful union, characterized by a connection that transcends culture, place of birth, native language, career situation, familial background, and the normal relationship killer that we all know, it's just distance. Distance kills these relationships, but not for them. I've known Karim for 13 years now, and Nata barely for 13 hours. Sure, I've heard about her for all these years, but I don't know her very well. So what I can do tonight is to comment on Karim's unique gifts for sharing life's deepest insights, joys, sorrows, humorous observations. Let me tell you about this gentleman who has an amazing aptitude for what I'm calling soulmateness. Karim and I met in Damascus, obviously the capital of Syria, Yani Sham, in 2004. And over the previous years, I've met cool people. I had lived and began my career as a Mideast expert. You know, Egypt, Morocco, Jerusalem. There were nice people to be met there. I had fascinating and deep interactions. But my connection to Karim was totally unique. We met on an Arab class field trip. I don't know if you recall. We went to Damascus's old city. We heard the story tell. But we chatted a few pleasantries, and instantly we were beyond that. It was a question of Edward Said and the neoconservatives that were dominant in Washington at the time. And then the question of what was it like to go camping when you were in the Swedish army? And then we really got to know each other within, the first 20 or 30 minutes. We got to the deepest and most important of life's questions. Syrian Alawite or Christian girls, who are the most beautiful? And that was just day one. So within a few days, we were inseparable in the old city, Bab Tuma, Bab Sharqi kind of world. And Karim was different than I at that time. He had a huge spiritual magnet on his forehead. People of various ages and nationalities, they were simply drawn to you, Karim. There were parties, there were late nights, there were the bottles of arak consumed from the beginning to the end without, getting up to go to the bathroom. And that was all great, and the palace restaurants, and the muhammara and fatoush. But the best times were when we didn't have a plan. We met spontaneously after class. We just hung out, walked around Damascus. Stuff came up in that magical environment. You know what I'll never forget was the weekend that we went to Aleppo. And you showed me the souk and the old fortress. We drank whiskey, and we watched soccer. And then Yeah, football. And then we went, after watching the football, I don't know if you remember, we went to Sahed al-Hatem, which is in Jdeida, the Christian area of Aleppo, where my parents have stayed, in Beit Wakil. We listened to oud music from my favorite oud player, Yahya el-Amir. And the two of us, do you remember after a lot of whiskey, we just danced. There was no one else in the restaurant. The two of us danced to oud music. It was bliss. It was connection, it was companionship. We were learning about another culture, about each other, and exploring the depths of our own mind. But then, that didn't mean we were destined to lifelong friendship, because I had had shipboard romances in Egypt, in Jerusalem, in Morocco. And usually, of course, you hung out, you drank, but then distance and different life trajectories intervened. And like other friendships, they drift apart. But it was not to be thus with Karim. Although we met in 2004, I date the solidification of our lifelong friendship to 2005. Karim and I had parted. You had returned to Sweden and had begun studying in Perpignan in southern France. We corresponded occasionally via email. My Wi-Fi didn't exist, I was in Syria. It might have stayed that way, and you would have been a regular friend who I wouldn't cross continents for, and I certainly wouldn't take 4 flights with a vestibular condition to attend your wedding. But then, really, something incredible happened. I don't know if you remember it. It was the winter of 2005. I told Karim I was traveling back to the US to see my parents via Malpensa Airport in Milan. And I said, I've got a 12-hour layover. You're just in Perpignan. And you said, cool. No problem, 12-hour layover. Meet me in the main square in the Duomo. You didn't mention, of course, that you took 8 hours worth of trains to be able to spend less than 8 hours with me. And to repay this amazing favor, we were resonating at this level already. I brought a plastic water bottle filled with homemade arak from an Alawite family who lived near Masyaf. And as it turns out, they were very close to the regime and were actually spying on me. But I didn't appreciate that at the time. So, Karim and I rendezvoused like long-lost brothers. We ascended the stairs of the Duomo. We took pre-digital, those manual pictures that needed to be developed. We saw the flying buttresses walking around in the Duomo. We pranced, we laughed, we drank. We soaked in each other's personalities and unique essences. And really, that kicked off our friendship. You traveled that way to spend my layover with me. And it has ever been thus. Despite usually living on separate continents, Karim and I have seen each other literally of the last 13 years. I think I've seen you 10 of those 13 years. I think we've traveled together in 9 countries. Most recently, Karim came to visit me when I was speaking at a shipping conference in Norway. Then before that, I was at my ex-girlfriend's wedding in Hungary. He came to Hungary. We explored the Lake Balaton and the wine country.
The most romantic evening I've ever had.
Was with a man. And I have to say, who does something like that? Only a man with a unique heart, but it's really a question of a unique gift for connecting to other people. And for Karim and I, the more we have gotten to know each other, the more we've discovered that we share an absurd amount in common. Karim is the only person I know on El-Kora al-Ardiya, on the planet Earth, other than myself, who despises both tuna fish and bananas, and who shares the presentness and connection capacity, which is increased in proportionality to the quality of wine, not its quantity. And for this reason, and its emotional resonance, I brought with me a Hungarian Tokaj Asu 5 Potanyos dessert wine. It's from 2005, Karim.
Oh.
And this is the year that we really became friends, that the magic happened. And of course, Tokaj is interesting. It's classic style, it's a Sauterne Botrytis wine style, as you were saying. It's also a historically fine wine region, which is underappreciated. Today's modern world, just people don't have the palate for the real stuff, the reading, the deep engagement that you and I do. So it's understood and appreciated by those who are not faint of heart. But I have to say, our unique connection goes far beyond food and beverages preferences. As Karim and I have gotten aged, the irony is we've come to resemble each other more physically. When you and I first met, you know, I didn't see any physical resemblance. But now, when you came to Oxford and you needed to go to formal dinner, I don't know if you remember, but you didn't have a sport coat and you didn't have a tie, let alone the correct shirt. Then we learned my shirts fit him, he's a size 15 neck. The sport coat fit perfectly. And so long as I tied the tie, it fit. And it didn't seem like...
You have to tie my tie tomorrow, by the way.
My pleasure. It didn't seem like our careers were going to be all that similar. But then again, we went from studying and loving Syria to trying to pursue our PhDs in North Africa. And the tragedy of Syria pulled us out to this other objective domain where we could separate our emotions and study North Africa and share all of what we've shared. Amazing how it all intertwines. But more important than all of these practical connections, Karim and I have shared a similar approach to the quest for love and a soulmate. I think it's occupied our discussions more than even the question of which hops is better in a microbrew. So when Karim first met Nata in India and told me about her, I sensed things were all of a sudden different from those earlier days. He had found in a woman something similar, yet deeper, more profound than what you and I share together. Someone to bounce ideas off of, to support, and with whom to embrace a more meaningful version of life. So Nata, you're not here now, but I hope you can join us via YouTube. So I've waxed so poetic about Karim, but actually this toast is not dedicated to him, quite the contrary. This toast is dedicated to you, Nata, and to you both in your connection. May you be soulmates connected in ways that defy any human language and defy our ability, despite eloquence, to articulate. May you grasp each other's true essence, not in spite of your differences, but paradoxically because of your differences, that analyzing and surmounting those differences allows you to see each other's spirit and your essence and what you value. Nata, I hope we too become lifelong friends. And more importantly, I hope that our kids will look forward to crossing continents to spend their holidays together. Well, I'll force them even if they don't want to. So, shall we now raise our glasses? My toast is to finding your soulmate, whether you need to travel halfway around the world or whether she grew up right next door. Please join me in toasting to Nata and Karim, to soulmates, Skål.
Skål.
Saha.
Saha wafe.